What's your best childhood memory? Why? Growing up, I didn't realize how poor we were. My parents were amazing at providing for us. We loved watching baseball games and I wanted to go to a game so bad. We never could afford it. To make up for it, while we were at school, my mom made up tickets to that night's game and money for us to spend. When we got home, she had set up chairs in front of the TV and numbered them, gave us the tickets and money, and told us to go clean up before the game. Come game time, we lined up at the doorway. My dad took our tickets and told us how to get to our seats. After the game started, my parents went to the kitchen and had a tray of hot dogs, candy, and soda. Hot dogs? Get your hot dogs. We got out the money my mom made and bought whatever snacks we wanted. Best baseball game I've ever been to. Edit. Spelling edit too. I'll dedicate the gold to my parents and spread the love. Family vacation to Colorado to ski. They piled all the grandkids, me, and 7 of my cousins in the back of the van and removed the bench seats, replaced them with air mattresses. They hooked up a TV and VHS player and we all watched the original Scream movie while eating road trip snacks and annoying the life out of our grandparents. We stopped the moment we got to where there was snow to have a giant family snowball fight. We took pictures the whole ride on disposable cameras. I think my older cousins mooned a few unsuspecting strangers. 18 hours there and 18 hours back, and the ride was just as good as the actual vacation. My parents' house had a huge prairie field beyond its backyard. There was a lot of wildlife, giant ponds, and tiny forests scattered throughout a giant plain. As an introverted child, I remember going on so many adventures here until the sun came down. One particular moment that sticks with me was sitting on my fence, overlooking the fields watching the sunset with my dog after a long day of playing. It's not a particularly eventful moment, but I remember thinking, that moment was perfect. As a kid that grew up reading Calvin and Hobbes, I feel so fortunate I got to grow up in the area I did. It was like I was living the life of my favorite comic. Let's go exploring. Having lunch and getting ice cream with my mum and dad when I was 9 in London. My school had organized a school trip and gave me special permission to see my dad instead of going to the science museum. We rejoined them later to go see cats. Dad works away from home. Back then, we didn't see him often, maybe a couple times a month, if we were lucky. We all got lunch in near Portobello Road and then went to get the ice creams. My dad got a particularly huge one. To my mind, it was like 7 scoops. Everything seems massive when you're a kid, and it all fell onto his tie. We laughed, talked about music and their lives in London before marriage/kids. We walked down the street, holding hands, me in the middle. I know it's such a non-event memory. I'm the youngest of 3 and this was the first, and possibly last time, I spent alone time with my parents. Just us 3, like I was their only kid. It made me feel special. I cherish this memory so much. The first time my mum was properly happy with her new partner. She had gone through a painful divorce after my dad cheated on her twice and taken some of her most precious belongings. She had barely been able to get custody of me. After that, she dated a sweet man who promptly died in a car accident while they were dating, and then ended up with a very abusive boyfriend. However, now, she is with the man of her dreams and the happiest she has ever been, and because of him, I've had a real childhood and a proper family. There are many, but just last night my husband said something that unlocked this one. My dad was still as an avid birder. He would teach me little things about birds and how to identify them by sight and call. We had a little ritual every night after dinner. We would walk outside in the darkness all the way to the barn and back, hooting like owls to try and get the owls to hoot back at us. Sometimes it worked. Most of the time it didn't. But every time I got to spend moments with my dad that still make me so happy to think about today. When I first figured out how to play drums, it was such a stereotypical movie moment, but I used to always play on an electric kit not very well. But as soon as I sat behind an actual kit, something clicked in my brain and my hands could move like they hadn't before. If that moment hadn't happened, I don't think I'd be where I am today. I don't know if this is officially my best, but I moved to a new town in the 4th grade, and it took me until the 5th grade to really start making friends. So that year I got invited to my first birthday for a new friend and I wanted to get them a good gift. I had seen he had a Dodge VIP poster on his wall, so I got him a pretty cool scale version of one. It was blue with a white racing stripe like his poster. My mom paid for half, and I paid for half out of my savings. After we did the cake and stuff, I realized that my friend's mom and brother had gotten him gifts, but none of the other friends had gotten him anything. I was really embarrassed. I thought I had done something stupid, like all 10-year-olds feel when they are not following the crowd. So I was sheepish when he opened my gift, but he really loved it, and I was glad I had gotten it for him, and in the end it was everyone else who felt sheepish for not bringing something. I saw that guy years later as an adult, and he brought up to me how much he had appreciated getting that VIP lol. There was one day in the summer of 2003 when me and all the neighborhood kids just hung around outside. We flew kites, played sports, got ice cream from a truck, etc. We spent the whole day outside doing fun stuff. I remember going to bed thinking that it was a perfect day. I still think about it sometimes. Not ducking thinking about tomorrow. Just woke up, hooked up with friends, spent all day playing stupid games, laughing, fighting, discovering. Nowadays if I have half a day to myself I think about how I can use it to do something work related, so that I can take it easier on the working days. I got many, but one of my favorites is when my mother got my brother and I out of school early to go to Dairy Queen for an ice cream cone. Watching my stepdad call the principal of my school in 4th grade out on his bullshit right in front of me, because it was the first time I had a father figure in my life who cared enough about me to stand up for me. Being a farm kid, sitting behind my older sister on a horse, ambling around our yard in the dark, looking up at the stars, while my sister sang with the softest, most beautiful voice I've ever heard. I fell asleep leaning on her back as she sang. Epilogue: the next day at school I tried to eat a stick of chalk to make my voice softer like my sister's. It was a terrible failure. Probably when I was still on that phase where I was oblivious to the world's or even family problems. We used to be on food stamps and my parents would get us these TV dinners from a neighbor and I loved them and thought they were the best. My mom never made us feel like we were missing out, and it helped me also become grateful for everything in life. I was in 7th grade. My childhood crush kissing me for the first time, and last we then went out and spent the entire day roaming around our neighborhood and held hands at sunset. We recently met again after 19 years. We've grown up different now, but that memory is still the happiest one I have. I used to wake up some days to my dad playing Wish You Were Here on the guitar downstairs and making breakfast. If this ever happened I knew it was gonna be a good day. It's been a long time since I've heard him play that song though. I would do anything to wake up to it one more time. 8th grader Amanda, my first hard crush, telling 5th grade me that I was cute on the school bus. I don't know if I've ever been quite that happy again in the entire rest of my life. Don't tell my wife and kids I said that. So my story I want to tell is about me being an army brat. So my dad was my birthday present. I was around 8 at the time. So let me explain. My dad was overseas in the Middle East. He was deployed for 26.5 months. And when he left I was 6 at the time. And when he finally came back home for good I was 10 years old. He always came home on leave each year for a week or two around Christmas time. And we were picking up my dad from the airport. I was so excited to see him that was running around in the airport calling for him, looking for any sign of him. So when I saw someone who was in uniform, naturally I thought it was my dad. So I start running up to him and then begin to wrap around one of his legs and sat down on his foot and start squeezing the life out of his leg, and my little brother was doing the same thing to his other leg as well. So after my mom got done prying us of him I look up, and what do you know, it wasn't my dad Big Rivali, and after countless times of us apologizing we left and found our dad a couple of minutes later, and did the same thing when we saw him. Mom says that we made the soldier cry a little because of our enthusiasm to see our dad. We didn't even look to see if it was dad, we just saw the uniform and bolted towards him. Just one day waking up to the sound of a busy household was my best day. It wasn't any particularly different day, but that one morning has been stuck in my memory for as long as I could remember while growing up. Father is cooking, mother is talking to her sisters, siblings are playing games. Edit some words. When I was 10 years old, my parents made help out back to clear out the weeds that had taken over our backyard. It was going to take a while because how crazy it was, but I was taking even longer to help because I was so distracted by the cute puppy our next door neighbor had. I found out that his parents were going to take him back to the shelter because their son wasn't taking good care of him like he promised. They offered to sell him to me for $20 and I had that saved up, so I went back and forth begging my parents if we could get him. They finally caved and he became our. I named him Snoopy and have never been as happy as I was that day. I was an only child, so I looked so much forward to having a dog to play with and go on adventures with. It's definitely my favorite memory because he meant too much to me in the almost 17 years he was a part of my life. /Zaz0 here is the first picture I have of us together, where you can see on my face just how happy and excited I was. http://imga.com/wrestliac1 JPG. When Star Wars Episode 3 came put on DVD, I remember me and my brother waiting all day by the door for it to be posted, and when it finally came we are jumping around the room. We couldn't wait for our dad to come home from work to set up the portable DVD player to our TV, so me and my brothers laid on the floor around this tiny screen watching it. Best memory ever. I came home from school early half day and both of my parents had come home from work early. They were cooking delicious food and my dad had caught me a praying mantis for my insect kit. It was a very good day. Me and my middle school best friend loved hanging out in the same room and playing WoW. We didn't have a car obviously, so we would have to walk 2 miles to meet. He would be pushing his computer and his skateboard. We would eventually make it to my house. So much fun. Helping my dad fix things around the house. I always loved tools and fixing things, and it was so satisfying when we got a job done. My mom reading us The Hobbit, a chapter each night. We were always so excited for the next chapter. I reread it, but it's not the same when you read it in a day compared to having it span weeks. It made it seem like a much longer adventure. We went to a goat farm, and I bought some corn, and the goats were so gentle and friendly. Even though they were excited, they didn't bite and only licked it off my hand. It tickled and was very sticky, but they were so cute. It is a good memory because it's one of the only ones that feels so misplaced. I don't remember when and where this occurred, but it for sure was a surprise that my parents took me there.